Welcome everyone, and I'm very pleased to be here and want to thank the World Affairs Council of Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky for including us in this program. The World Affairs Council of Northwest Ohio serves the greater Toledo area, and in February we will be celebrating our 10th anniversary since our founding. Um, we're hoping to have a big founding 10-year anniversary celebration, but we maybe will have an 11-year celebration instead. But our council is all volunteer, so everything that we do is on the backs of people who are willing to do something for the greater good, and we really appreciate that, including the gentlemen who are here to speak with us today from the various different religious perspectives that they will represent, and looking at how peace and justice fold into that. We have four speakers today, um, speaking from different points of view from religious beliefs and perspectives, and they include a good friend of mine, Abdel Wahab Solomon. Abdel lives here in Perrysburg, and he is a member of the board of the Islamic Center of Greater Toledo. He's also a member of the Multi-Faith Council of Northwest Ohio, and he is a founding member and current board member of our World Affairs Council as well. Also, Abdel, his daughter joined our first exchange program that we did as a council in Hungary. Toledo has a sister city in Szeged, Hungary, and that's where I met another of our speakers, Tamás Szilágyi. Tamás and I enjoy many things in common, including our love for food, but we've had the opportunity to have some great, deep conversations about religion. So when I thought of this topic, I thought of Tamás. Also, we have Jason Miller, who is going to represent the perspective of Catholicism. Jason, I only recently and virtually met through a former student teacher of mine who, when I reached out to him in my desperation to find somebody to present, Jason was really good enough to volunteer and come through for us. Similarly, Andrew Askovich is representing the Jewish perspective, and I had the pleasure of listening to some of his presentations at the Ohio Council for the Social Studies presentation or conferences over the last few years, and was really impressed. And so I reached out to him, and he was gracious enough to be willing to share with us as well. So I'm really excited about our panel, and I hope that everybody else will get a lot out of this. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, James and Bill, Michelle, everyone who's put together this wonderful program. It's an honor to take part. My name is Jason Miller, and I'm the Director of Campaigns and Development at the Franciscan Action Network in Washington, D.C. And as Bill mentioned, we made a connection through St. Francis High School in Toledo. I am a Toledo native, and again, honored to be a part of this panel. So I'm going to talk about how does Catholicism address peace and justice. And we heard a little bit about what a couple different people thought about what peace and justice is, and we'll explore that as well. First, let's talk about what is Catholicism quickly. So Catholicism is a branch of Christianity, and Christians believe that Jesus, who was a Jewish man that lived about 2,000 years ago, is the Son of God, but he was also fully human. And Christians believe that he was crucified and then 3 days later resurrected. And Catholicism itself was instituted when Jesus told Peter, his apostle or one of his followers, to build his church. And eventually Peter became the first pope, who is the leader of the Catholic Church. And Christianity has roots in Judaism and also to Islam through the shared ancestor of Abraham. But let's talk a little bit about who was Jesus, the man, the human, the individual. We think often Christians think of him as God, but he was also fully human. He was a teacher. He spoke in parables. He was a refugee. You may have heard in the news about the refugee crisis that is on our southern border and also in various countries throughout the world. Christians believe that he was a miracle worker. He was homeless. He had, as they say, no place to lay his head. And he's often referred to as the Prince of Peace. Here's two depictions of Jesus. One is what you might be familiar with, sort of the blonde hair and blue eyes, although he's not so blonde there. But the one next to it is what scholars believe he really looked like about 2,000 years ago. He was a darker skinned man who was in the Middle East, and he's someone who was a part of his time, not the image that we might have of Jesus today in popular depictions. So Jesus the man, he was a lot of things. We say he was the Prince of Peace, but in the Gospels and the stories about his life, sometimes he got angry. So you might have heard that phrase, what would Jesus do? Well, remind them that flipping over tables and chasing people with a whip is within the realm of possibilities. That is in the gospel. And Jesus did get angry. He was fully human, and it was a radical idea at the time to, in this story, kick the money changers out of the temple. So he was constantly on the side of the oppressed and the downtrodden. Jesus said to turn the other cheek and to love your neighbor. But he also wasn't afraid to speak up for those who were being oppressed. So we've heard a little bit about Catholicism and about Jesus, the man. But let's think about what exactly is justice. We saw that video at the beginning. And so let's imagine that you have 3 kids who want to watch a baseball game, but they don't have money for tickets. So they decide, well, we're just gonna peek over the fence. Well, if you think about equality is ensuring that these 3 kids, who are all different shapes, sizes, abilities, all have one block to stand on. So if you think, well, then it's all equal. They're able to see over the fence because they all have a block, but they can't because they all have different abilities and they're of different sizes and shapes. And just like any other people may be, and you and I might be. But if you think about justice is ensuring that each person, no matter their abilities, is able to see over the fence and able to watch the baseball game. So when we talk about what is justice, we're ensuring that no person is held back, no matter their ability or circumstance. That is the difference between equality and justice. So what's the difference between justice and charity? When we think, you might know Christians, or you might be a Christian yourself, and lots of Christians are involved in charitable works, and that's important. We talk about in Catholicism the 2 feet of love and action. So one of those feet is charity. When you think about meeting the basic needs of individuals, it's working at a soup kitchen, working at a homeless shelter. It's building a house for Habitat for Humanity or a similar organization. These actions are important and they're charitable actions, but they're just a Band-Aid solution. What we also need when we talk about loving our neighbor is social justice, and that's removing the root causes to improve structures. So that's working to improve the education system. That's working to ensure that people are no longer homeless, that they don't go hungry. So we need both of those feet of love and of action, that we have the charitable works, that fulfills the basic human needs of shelter and food, but we also have the foot of social justice, which helps to improve the structures so that people aren't hungry or homeless. So what are those 7 principles? These beautiful images that I'm going to show are by Brother Mickey McGrath, who is an oblate of St. Francis de Sales, who sponsors St. Francis High School in Toledo. And the first one is life and dignity of the human person. For the Catholic Church, that means from conception to natural death. That means including those who may be disabled. All people have dignity and worth. Called a family, community, and participation. That means that the family is important, and families, as we know today, come in all different shapes and sizes and kinds. And again, everyone and the family itself has dignity. Another principle is rights and responsibilities. That means that as human beings, we all have human rights, and we also have a responsibility to one another. Option for the poor and vulnerable. That means that those who are going without take precedence. You might know the story of Jesus and the miracle of feeding those with the fish and the loaves. And he did that despite not having any food, but he still was able to perform a miracle and put the poor first, which he often did. The dignity of work and the rights of workers. In the video, it talked about how modern Catholic social teaching has its roots in a papal encyclical that talked about the rights of workers. And that is a core principle of Catholic social teaching and thought, that all workers have rights and dignity. Solidarity. That means that this Catholic social teaching principle is that all people, despite the fact that they're different, are together and one, and we are all human beings that have worth. Care for God's creation. Not only do human beings have worth and dignity, but so does the earth. And we're called, as we live on it, to take care of it and to be good stewards. So let's talk for a second about my work with the Franciscan Action Network for Justice in Washington, D.C. We are a organization that represents what we say the various branches of the Franciscan family tree in the United States. We do advocacy, lobbying on Capitol Hill. We are out in the streets advocating for justice. We are speaking in public. There I am in front of the Capitol. And sometimes, yes, we're even risking arrest, as you see in that photo. And inspired by the gospel of Jesus and the examples of St. Francis and Clare, the Franciscan Action Network is a collective Franciscan voice seeking to transform United States public policy related to peacemaking, care for creation, poverty, and human rights. These are radical ideas that we are rooted in Catholic social teaching. And the question is now, how is this so radical? Who are some of these radical examples of people besides Jesus who have lived out these values of justice and peace? Well, our work is rooted in St. Francis. And who is St. Francis? Well, he was born a wealthy man, and then he had a conversion experience. And so he devoted his life to God and to the poor and started a religious order. You might know him as the guy in the garden. He's in your bird bath, and he's that funny guy from the 12th century that talks to animals. He was one with all of creation and with other human beings. Just as it says in our Principles of Catholic Social Teaching, he believed in human dignity and solidarity, and he advocated for peace and interreligious understanding. There you see him speaking to the birds, being one with creation, but he was also radical because during the Crusades, the wars between Christians and Muslims, he reached out to the Sultan of Egypt and had a conversation with him and advocated for peace at a time of war. Who is Pope Francis? You might have heard of him. He's the current Pope or leader of the Catholic Church. He was the first Jesuit Pope, but he took the name Francis, so that's great. And he's been the leader of the Catholic Church since 2013. Pope Francis really employs the idea of both feet of love, of charity and justice. And he's brought refugees' families to live with him at the Vatican. You may have seen in that first slide a picture of St. Peter's Basilica, which is the Vatican. Has those solar panels there as well. And he's really walking the walk and talking the talk. He's written papal encyclicals or teachings on the environment and the solidarity between all human beings. And there he is meeting with leaders of the Middle East, just as St. Francis did before him. Pope Francis, when he speaks, is often radical. On climate change, he said that man has slapped down nature and we've lorded over Sister Earth and Mother Earth. On politics, he says that a good Catholic meddles in politics, that you can't say that you have nothing to do with this. And it's one of the highest forms of charity because it serves the common good. And on LGBTQ people, he says that if a person is gay and seeks God and has goodwill, who am I to judge? He made quite the headlines with that statement. More examples of social justice advocates, how Catholics are living this out in their everyday lives. You probably know of or have heard of nuns or sisters who have taken vows to live in poverty and in service of others, often they're teachers and nurses. But they also have heard the Catholic Church's call and Pope Francis's call to work with those on the margins. And they're fierce social justice advocates who sometimes find themselves at odds with the institutional church. There's a picture of nuns on the bus. You may have heard of them, or Helen Prejean, who works with those on death row. Sisters have been working for justice for decades and marched in Selma during the civil rights movement. Final example, Dorothy Day. Dorothy Day dedicated her life to the 2 feet of justice and charity. She started the Catholic Worker House, where she lived with the homeless and in poverty. She was also a fierce advocate for pacifism and often risked arrest. As you see, she's in protest there. And she started a newspaper that still sells for a penny today. And the Catholic worker movement has grown across the United States and the world. When Pope Francis addressed Congress in 2015, he named her as one of the 4 extraordinary Americans in his address. And he said that her social activism, her passion for justice for the cause of the oppressed were inspired by the gospel, her faith, and the example of the saints. She really lived out Catholic social teaching. In conclusion, we've heard about the 7 principles of Catholic social teaching: the life and dignity of the human person, call to family, community, and participation, rights and responsibilities, option for the poor and vulnerable, the dignity of work and the rights of workers, solidarity, and care for God's creation. What's the bottom line here? Whether you're Catholic or not, you can live a radical life following these social justice principles. Please connect with me and with the Franciscan Action Network, franciscanaction.org. There's our information. Thanks again.
Thank you, Jason. That was really informative. One of the things that stuck out with me was when you were discussing about St. Francis and the Sultan of Egypt, because as it happens, our next speaker is Egyptian. And I'm really pleased to have Abdel Wahab Solomon share with us some of his insights on peace and justice and Islam, starting now.
Peace be with you all. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very, very much for everyone. I'm really honored to be here to talk about peace and justice in Islam. What is Islam? Islam is not a new religion. It came after Judaism and Christianity. It's a continuation of them. The core belief in Islam is, core belief in all the religions is very close, very much the same. The word Islam in itself came from the word SLM, which is salam. This is the root word in Arabic. It means peace. So Islam means peace. And also it means submission. So it means a peaceful submission, peaceful and free submission to God. We call God in Arabic Allah. Allah is the Arabic word for God. So it is the same. God and Allah are the same. The word also the Muslim. Islam is the religion. A Muslim is the person who believes in Islam, and also came from the root word Islam. So Islam, as defined, Islam is the religion of peace, is to live in peace with God by obeying his commands and create a loving relationship with God, to live with peace with yourself, inner peace with yourself, and to live in peace with humanity, your neighbors, your family, all creatures of God, to live also in peace with all creatures of God, and to live also in peace with the environment. We are commanded to protect all the environments and the resources because it belongs to humanity. One of the names of God or the attributes of God is actually called As-Salam. It came also from the same root word of Islam. And we use the greetings of Islam as I started with, we call Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be with you. And also the greetings in the day of judgment will be also all in heaven, in paradise will be peace with you also. So indeed, peace is the core of Islam. I'll talk very, very briefly on this one. What do Muslims believe? I said we believe in God, we believe in all angels, we believe in all scriptures, we believe in like Torah and the Bible, we believe in all of them, we believe in all the prophets of God, Moses and Jesus and all of them, and we believe in the life after death, and we believe in the day of judgment. How Muslims practice Islam? We have 5 pillars of Islam: declaration of faith, we pray, we pay charity, we fast, and we do a pilgrimage. There is a common misconception about Islam. They are always thinking of Muslims as violent, religion of violence, but this is not really true. From the definition I made, the people who are committing crimes or terrorist activities in Islam are extremely minority in Islam, and they don't really represent the religion. They are taking things out of context, and they do harm, much more harm to Muslims, more than anyone else. Most of their victims are from Muslims, and the media also is propagating that negative perception or stereotypes about Muslims by coining terrorism with Islam, which is really wrong and needed to stop. What scriptures we are relying on as Muslims that will examine peace and justice according to them? We have the Quran, which is the last revealed message from God. It was revealed more than 1400 years ago. It is written in Arabic. Not a single word was changed, and the Quran is acknowledged in English, in Arabic language also. Anything else is called a translation of the Quran. The second source, we believe in the sayings and what the Prophet said and did. And this is, of course, secondary to the Quran, and it should not contradict the Quran itself. When we talk about peace and justice, really, we cannot separate them. They go hand in hand. And we are familiar with the slogan, no justice, no peace. There are 2 important rules in Islam you need to take into consideration, because also those are important, because there are some people are claiming that Muslims wants to impose their religion on everyone. No, that's not true. It's a rule in Islam. Any Muslim living anywhere has to comply, has to follow the law of the land. And the second one, laws are implemented by the state only, not individuals. So no Muslim can take the law in his hand or her hand. From the creation point of view, God created us from Adam and Eve. Well, we're created equal. And God created us into tribes and nations and tribes, so you might know each other and you cooperate with each other, not to fight with each other. And the sayings by the Prophet saying, we created from Adam and Eve, a white has no superiority over a black, nor a black has a superiority over a white. And in order to live in peaceful coexistence with each other, most likely what you have heard about the principles in the previous slide by Jason, it will be very much here also. In the Quran, it's saying when you are talking with the people, you have to talk with them, argue with them with the best manner. And a prophet saying, if you harm a peaceful non-Muslim or anyone in the society, as if you are harming him, and you're harming him is a disobedient of God. Again, a continuation. Most of my talk is really a quotation either from the Quran, from the Islamic scripture, the Quran, or the sayings of the Prophet. Here, a Muslim living in a country, he should be kind and be very respectful to everyone else and treat them as a part of his or her family, as long as they are not fighting him because of his religion or they are not driving him out of his home. If you are living in a society and you see something wrong, do something about it. If you can change it by your hand, go ahead. If not, just by saying, report it, talk about it, talk with the person about it. If not, pray to God to guide the wrongdoing person and also to resent what he is doing. Don't repeat what he's doing. Here is saying by the Prophet also, saying spread peace among yourselves and to those and greet others whom you know or you don't know. Feed the hungry is another saying. You feed the hungry, visit the sick, free the captive. and assist also in any oppressed person. Of course, whether a Muslim or a non-Muslim, this is applicable to everyone in the society. Yeah, also, you need to forgive. You need to join the people who cut you off. Do good, even if the people are doing bad to you, and speak the truth, even if it is against yourself. And the last one, none of you really believes unless he wishes for his brother the same he wishes for himself. From the Quran, saying, stand firm for justice. And don't let the hatred of people. If you hate any group of people or you don't like them, you still have to be just. Be just in all cases. If you have a trust for anyone, you have to return it, and you have to be just also. If you judge between anyone, you have to be just in your judgment. When you are doing any transaction, any dealings, whether it is physical, like selling and buying, volume or masses, you have to be just. Do not cheat in any transactions you are doing. If you judge, you have to be judged. This is again, if you are in this for the judge or for anyone in the society. If you have to judge between people, you have to be just. And here again, if you are a witness, you have to say the truth, whether it is against you, against your parents, against your relative, whether they are poor or rich. You have to say the truth. Again, this is repeated in the previous presentation. Care for God's creature. God basically is saying in the Quran, He created all the creatures of God. They are nations like us, so we have to respect them and we have to protect them. It's our job to protect the environment and to take care of the animals and take care of all the creatures of God, whether it is vegetation, whether it is the earth itself. We have to take care of the creatures of God. Justice. All our deeds are recorded, and everyone in the day of judgment will receive his book or her book, and will be judged according to what we did in our life. So if the justice is not served on earth, the ultimate service will be done in the day of judgment. So everyone done something good or bad will be rewarded according to that. The conclusion of this one, really, peace and justice are the very core of Islam. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you all. Thank you.